How I passed Azure Fundamentals exam, AZ-900. What does the exam look like? From the FAQ, you have 60 minutes to answer between 40 to 60 questions. But I only had 30 questions in my exam. It was quite a nice surprise. The exam presents several question types. Multiple choice in different forms, 1 correct response and 3 incorrect responses, select correct description, 2 or more correct responses out of 5 or more options. Drag and drop, move the response to the correct description. Hot area, answer questions, screenshot, picture, or diagram, in a graphical form. Exam resources. What does the exam look like? There are several resources out there that can help you to pass the exam. Here are the resources I used to learn for the exam. Microsoft Learning Path. A great resource to learn for the exam is the learning path Microsoft provided for Azure Fundamentals. The whole learning path is straightforward and free to use to learn for the exam. It takes roughly less than 10 hours to complete the learning path and give you enough knowledge needed to pass for the exam itself. Use Azure with a free account. In the exam, you will get practical questions on what type of solution you need to use within Azure in certain situations. It is thus better to get some hands-on experience with Azure itself. Thankfully, you can try Azure for free for 12 months. I highly recommend you to check out and experiment with the services of Azure to get a better understanding of the platform. AZ-900, Microsoft Azure Fundamentals Exam Questions. Please refer my exam questions videos. Azure Fundamentals Exam, Skills Measured. 1. Describe cloud concepts, 15 to 20%. Describe the benefits and considerations of using cloud services. Describe terms such as high availability, scalability, elasticity, agility, fault tolerance, and disaster recovery. Describe the principles of economies of scale. Describe the differences between capital expenditure, CapEx, and operational expenditure, OPEX. Describe the consumption-based model. Describe the differences between infrastructure as a service, IaaS, platform as a service, PaaS, and software as a service, SaaS. Describe infrastructure as a service, IaaS. Describe platform as a service, PaaS. Describe software as a service, SaaS. Compare and contrast the 3 different service types. Describe the differences between public, private, and hybrid cloud models. Describe public cloud. Describe private cloud. Describe hybrid cloud. Compare and contrast the 3 different cloud models. 2. Describe core Azure services, 30 to 35%. Describe the core Azure architectural components. Describe regions. Describe availability zones. Describe resource groups. Describe Azure Resource Manager. Describe the benefits and usage of core Azure architectural components. Describe some of the core products available in Azure. Describe products available for compute such as virtual machines, virtual machine scale sets, app services, Azure Container Instances, ACI, and Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS. Describe products available for networking such as virtual network, load balancer, VPN, gateway, application gateway, and content delivery network. Describe products available for storage such as blob storage, disk storage, file storage, and archive storage. Describe products available for databases such as Cosmos DB, Azure SQL Database, Azure Database for MySQL, Azure Database for PostgreSQL, Azure Database Migration. Service. Describe the Azure Marketplace and its usage scenarios. 2. Describe core Azure services, 30 to 35%. Describe some of the solutions available on Azure. Describe Internet of Things, IoT, and products that are available for IoT on Azure such as IoT Hub and IoT Central. Describe big data and analytics and products that are available for big data and analytics such as Azure Synapse Analytics, HD Insight, and Azure Databricks. Describe artificial intelligence, AI, and products that are available for AI such as Azure Machine Learning Service and Studio. Describe serverless computing and Azure products that are available for serverless computing such as Azure Functions, Logic Apps, and Event Grid. Describe DevOps solutions available on Azure such as Azure DevOps and Azure Dev Test Labs. Describe the benefits and outcomes of using Azure solutions. Describe Azure management tools. Describe Azure tools such as Azure Portal, Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI, and Cloud Shell. Describe Azure Advisor. 3. Describe security, privacy, compliance, and trust, 25 to 30%. Describe securing network connectivity in Azure. Describe network security groups, NSG. Describe application security groups, ASG. Describe user-defined rules, UDR. Describe Azure Firewall. Describe Azure DDoS protection. Choose an appropriate Azure security solution. Describe core Azure identity services. Describe the difference between authentication and authorization. Describe Azure Active Directory. Describe Azure multi-factor authentication. Describe security tools and features of Azure. Describe Azure Security Center. Describe Azure Security Center usage scenarios. Describe Key Vault. Describe Azure Information Protection, IP. Describe Azure Advanced Threat Protection, ADP. Describe Azure Governance Methodologies. Describe policies and initiatives with Azure Policy. Describe Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. Describe locks. Describe Azure Advisor Security Assistance. Describe Azure Blueprints. Describe monitoring and reporting options in Azure. Describe Azure Monitor. Describe Azure Service Health. Describe the use cases and benefits of Azure Monitor and Azure Service Health. Describe privacy, compliance, and data protection standards in Azure. Describe industry compliance terms such as GDPR, ISO, and NIST. Describe the Microsoft Privacy Statement. Describe the Trust Center. Describe the Service Trust Portal. Describe Compliance Manager. Determine if Azure is compliant for a business need. Describe Azure Government Cloud Services. Describe Azure China Cloud Services. 4. Describe Azure pricing, service level agreements, and Lifecycles, 20 to 25%. Describe Azure subscriptions. Describe an Azure subscription. Describe the uses and options with Azure subscriptions such access control and offer types. Describe subscription management using management groups. Describe planning and management of costs. Describe options for purchasing Azure products and services. Describe options around Azure Free Account. Describe the factors affecting costs such as resource types, services, locations, ingress and egress traffic. Describe zones for billing purposes. Describe the pricing calculator. Describe the total cost of ownership, TCO, calculator. Describe best practices for minimizing Azure costs such as performing cost analysis, creating spending limits and quotas, using tags to identify cost owners, using Azure reservations and using Azure Advisor recommendations. Describe Azure cost management. Describe Azure Service Level Agreements, SLAs. Describe a Service Level Agreement, SLA. Describe composite SLAs. Describe how to determine an appropriate SLA for an application. Describe Service Lifecycle in Azure. Describe public and private preview features. Describe the term General Availability, GA. Describe how to monitor feature updates and product changes.